pretty much everything has changed. There's been a lot of updates for both of them. I've always said that this will go down in history as one of the best parallel twin cylinder engines, but which would I choose? I would choose the... Good afternoon folks, welcome to Visordown. My name is Toad and today we're in Portugal for the launch of Yamaha's new Tracer 7 and Tracer 7 GT, which is the bike that you can see in front of me. So we've been riding out here in Porto, done about 270 kilometres, so yeah, we've done a decent day's riding on the things, and we've been jumping from one bike to the other, swapping at the photo points and just getting an equal measure of each of these two new. Pretty much everything has changed. There's been a lot of updates for both of them, getting a really good idea of what's going on with these two bikes, and I've had a lot of experience with the Tracer models, the Tracer 7 in particular. One of my first ever long-term press bikes when I came into this industry was a Tracer 7, the first edition. I went on the launch of the next generation, and then to ride this one today feels like I've got a very thorough overview of where the model has gone. So I'm going to tell you pretty much everything that you need to know about the bike, and then I'm going to tell you how it rides. So first and foremost, we need to get to the price of these things. So the Tracer 7 is £8,804. while the GT I think is £10,104. So it's about a £1,300 price difference between the two. So what do you get for your differences? Well, specific to the GT, which is the model that I think Yamaha are banking on, it's probably the one they'll bring the most of into the country. You get a larger screen, which is 90mm taller and 1mm thicker than the screen on the stock bike. It is all adjustable on both models of the bike, it's worth mentioning. You get 34-litre side cases, and there is a homologated top case as well, which you can add, and that is all absolutely fine to ride with the bottom cases. You get the centre stand as standard on the Tracer 7 GT, sorry, and the centre stand is now designed to fit the bike. On the old bike, it would ground out very easily if you were cornering quite heavily. On this one, it fits a lot nicer, so you can still ground it out, but it's a lot better than it used to be. You get heated grips as standard on the GT as well, which is great. And the seat is a few millimetres higher than it is on the standard Tracer 7, but that is just purely and simply because it's got more foam, and it's got these very nice little gel pad insert sections to make it a little bit comfier as well. You've got rubber inlays in the pillion pegs on the GT, and the GT also gets a remote preload adjuster, which gives you about 21 steps of rear preload on the bike. Other than that, they're both the same, and now I'm going to go through what's new to both the models. So you could look at it and you could say that, oh, it's just a normal Tracer with revised styling and some USD forks and radial brakes, but there's a lot more to it than that. So yes, it has got USDs at the front. It's got KYB 43mm forks, which are adjustable for rebound damping only. The other changes to the bike are very small, but they're kind of all the way through the chassis and the frame and the engine. So we have got frame which has been stiffened torsionally for lateral stiffness in the frame, which has kind of just stiffened the whole bike up a little bit, because it could tend to flex a little bit on the other models of the bike. We have also got a revised engine. So this is the new Euro 5 Plus engine that's shared with the other bikes in the CP2 range. We've got a ride-by-wire throttle, which is very important for a bike like this because it brings to the bike for the first time riding modes. So the Tracer 7 never had the riding modes before, but it has now got those. So you've got 3 levels of power, you've got 2 levels of traction control, you've got a sport, a road, and a custom mode, which you can just set up as your wet riding mode if you want, which is absolutely great. You've also got a very nice 5-inch TFT, which is very clear, very easy to use, and is a proprietary item which is shared across a lot of other Yamaha models. So it's one that we know, and we can use the menus and stuff quite easily. It's very clear, very easy to read, and very nice looking. You also get the updated switch cubes, which have been on things like the MT-07, the MT-09, you know, the XSR 900 GP. That's also incorporated into the bike, which has got the rocker switch for the indicators, which I don't really get on with, and I'll come on to a little bit later. Like I said, both bikes get the adjustable screen. This one's a little bit taller, but overall the ergonomics have changed across them both. So the bars are 50mm wider and 30mm higher than they were on the previous generation of Tracer 7. So all in all, it's got a bit more of an adventure bike feel to the riding position when you sit on it. That is the way that I have sort of taken it as I've been riding it today. So I may as well just get into the review really, and I'm going to start with the engine, and it's the same engine that's in the other bikes in the CP2 range, and it's pretty much the same sort of spec. And it was, and it always will be an absolute gem of a parallel twin cylinder. I've always said that this will go down in history as one of the best parallel twin cylinder engines ever made, and I still stand by that. In this, it just feels so at home. It's got a very punchy character in the mid-range, so that's come from the ride-by-wire throttle, has allowed them to really optimise the fueling in the middle of the rev range. And it's got a punch that the Tracer 7 never had before. Out of corners, you could always be lazy with this bike. In the previous generations, you could always leave it in third gear and just roll round twisty B roads and ride the torque out the corner, because the torque is so wide and so rich and so deep. But now it's just got a little bit more punch off the corner, which is great, and it just makes it feel like a proper sports tourer now. That's one of the things that I've noticed. And the ride-by-wire throttle is beautifully set up as well. I'm normally one to moan about a snatchy throttle. That's been picked up on in the comments before, but on this bike they've absolutely nailed it, and it's been the same for a lot of the other CP2 and CP3 bikes. They have also changed something in the gearbox, so they've added some more dog teeth to some of the gears just to help the gear engagement, and it has made it better, because clutchless shifting up through the gears on this thing, I think I might have encountered a false neutral maybe once or twice when I was really rushing a clutchless gear change and I hooked a false neutral, but other than that it's been faultless. And I used to get more false neutrals and little glitches with the gearbox on the other models in the Tracer 7 range. So that's a big update. As well, the clutch has been updated. So the slipper assist clutch on this now gives you a lever which is supposedly 23% lighter than it was on the old generation bike. I can't tell you what 23% lighter at the clutch lever feels like, but it is a phenomenally light clutch. And as a lot of people ride these things around cities, London, Milan, wherever, that's going to be an absolute godsend, because it's just going to mean your left arm isn't getting an absolute workout. I'm going to move on to the handling, because that is really where this bike has just gone like this. The handling of the Tracer 7 was always okay. It was good enough. The chassis was good enough, the suspension was good enough, and the brakes were good enough for it to be called a sports tourer, or for it to say it was a sports tourer. In reality though, the suspension, the traditional cartridge forks that were fitted to the old bike, and the non-radially mounted brakes, you could find the limit quite quickly. The suspension was quite pogo-y, and it kind of was the only fly in the ointment of that bike. That's all changed. This bike has got a lot more composure. It doesn't fall through the stroke when you get on the brakes, and there isn't that pogo-y rebound when you come off the brakes to tip the thing into the corner. It feels a lot more classy than it ever did. The rear suspension as well is very plush, very nice, rides bumps in the roads very well, and we were hitting mid-corner lumps and bumps in the middle of fast corners on these today, and it was dealing with it so much better than the old bike would. I know the old bike would have gotten settled and it would have started shaking its bars and you would have been in a little bit of a tizzy about it, but this thing just feels super planted, feels super controlled, and the suspension just gives it a much more premium feel to any of the old bikes. What the suspension also has allowed Yamaha to do is to introduce radial brakes. Now they are very similar calipers to the ones that were found on the last generation, but they've just got a nicer feel to them now because they're radially mounted. It's just really reassuring. You've only got 2-channel ABS, so there's no IMU control, no cornering ABS on this bike, but because the braking system is so easy to use, so progressive, but with lots and lots of power, you can use all of the brake up into the apex of the corner, just relying on the 2-channel ABS and not come into any trouble whatsoever. Granted, we have had some of the best weather that I have ever encountered in Portugal on this press launch. Normally we come here in February or March or October or September and it's raining and it's cold and it's a bit drizzly and horrible. This press launch has been absolutely brilliant. We've had bright sunshine, it only just clouded over at the end of the day, and we've had dry roads all day. And a big thumbs up has to go to the tyres. These are Michelin Road 6 GT tyres that are fitted to it, and they just feel like they are properly good tyres for this model. They've been picked from Michelin's range and they are the perfect thing for it. Like I said, we've not tested the wet weather capability of the tyres whatsoever, but having ridden these tyres in the wet before, I can tell you it's going to be pretty good. So on that front, they've made some really good decisions. So really, what would I choose? We haven't got a standard bike here, we've only got the GT, but which would I choose? Well, they say they're exactly the same in terms of the chassis, in terms of the frame, in terms of the suspension settings that are in it. The only difference is this one's got the top cases and it comes in just under 10 kilos heavier. So the stock bike's about 203, this one's about 2010 or something like that. They say they're exactly the same. When you ride them, they do feel different. And the only reason that I'm saying that with such honesty and like it's so clear in my head is because at the photo stops today, we were doing a run on the standard bike and then we'd get off it, we'd get on the GT and then we'd ride the GT, and they definitely feel different. The GT feels a bit sportier, feels a bit more direct, it wants to turn a bit more, and this does feel a little bit more settled and it sort of sits in the suspension a little bit more. And I don't know if that's just the extra weight that it's carrying or where the weight might be positioned, because you've got the panniers right out here over the back wheel, but it just feels a little bit more reassuring and not quite so pointy as the standard bike, which is probably what you want if you're looking for a tourer, and if you're going for the GT, ultimately that's probably what you're going to be doing. We spoke to Yamaha's engineers, they said there are no changes within the suspension, so it's going to be down to the actual weight distribution of the bike. But which would I choose? I would choose the GT. It's about £1,300 more. You get the remote preload adjuster, you get the comfort seat, you get the panniers, and you get the paint scheme, which is probably the best of the bunch. There is also a dark black paint scheme for the GT, which looks very, very nice. It makes it the one that I'd go for. If the GT had a quick shifter as standard, which it's a shame that it doesn't, it would be an absolute no-brainer in my opinion. So I've gone over all the good bits. Are there any bad bits? Well, there are, and oddly enough, it's only with the GT, and it's that taller screen. The screen's 90mm taller and it should offer you a very nice expansive bubble to sit between, at least when it's on its highest setting. But what I found was when it was on its lowest setting or its highest setting, my helmet was still sat in an area of turbulent air and I had to duck quite significantly to get into any kind of bubble of clear air. When I was riding the standard Tracer 7, the screen on its lowest setting was so low, it was almost like you were riding a naked bike and there was no turbulence around your head and you were just getting a little bit on your shoulders. And when you put it up to its tallest setting, the turbulence was sort of around here, hitting the chin bar of my helmet. Obviously it's going to be different for different people, your different sizes, different heights. People ride bikes differently, but that's just my opinion. I would opt for even a taller screen or try and get the screen off this and get a standard screen for it and just ride around with that, but you are going to lose out on some of the weather protection. The other bonus of going for the GT as well, of course, is those heated grips, which we haven't tested today, but I'm sure in the winter in the UK, they will come in very handy indeed. So moving on to the verdict, really, it's nicer to look at. It's got more spec, it's got more tech, it's got better hardware, it's got proper suspension that can really handle being pushed hard on a twisty B road. And it feels, for me now, more like the sports tourer that it was always meant to be. The Tracer 7 kind of, when it first came out, it was called a sports tourer, but it kind of just became a bit of a commuter bike that maybe you could tour on, but most people just use them for buzzing around the cities and riding to work through the winter. And then the next generation came about and visually it was better looking and it had a bit more tech on it, but it was very much the same bike in terms of the handling characteristics were very similar, and it was just a better looking version of the Tracer 7. This one now feels much more sorted. It feels much more like the sports tourer that it's been pretending to be for the last 7 years, with that stiffer chassis, stiffer frame, better suspension, better brakes and more technology. It feels very much like the real deal. Well, if you've liked that video, please don't forget to hit like and subscribe so you can stay up to date with all of Visordown's latest videos. And for the latest news, reviews and motorcycle features, get yourself over to visordown.com.